Here.
Am I off again? Okay. Mr. Coulter?
Here.
Mr.
Love it here.
I started to call you Virgil, and no, it's
fine.
love it.
It's my first name. It's fine.
I'm just putting your initials here. Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mrs. Knight?
Here.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. I get it. It's all right here. Approval of the March 28th, 2023 regular council meetings. Were there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, those stand as written and distributed. Reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
Thank you. I just want to report real quickly on what is going on with regard to the county and the City of Cincinnati Convention Center planned district plan and how that could or might impact us up here in Sharonville. Many of you recall, if you want to go back a decade plus, there was a plan that was put in place that enabled us to expand our convention center now twice by way of that. So there is now a new plan that is being proposed in order to try to renovate the Duke Energy Center as well as add a new headquarter hotel to the downtown hotel. In order to do that, they want to, in many ways, rework that plan that was put into place many years ago. So we are actively engaged in discussions with our state legislators as well as the city and the county as far as what their plans are, how their financing is going to work. Does it make sense for our northern communities, and making sure that our northern communities continue to be represented appropriately by way of the Greater Cincinnati Convention and Visitors Bureau. That plan includes a new 1% increase to the county lodging tax in order to make that plan work. So there has to be state involvement as well as obviously county involvement to make that plan work. I will say that, and I've told folks that I think the headquarter hotel for downtown as well as a renovation, if not expansion, of the Duke Convention Center are both important priorities for regional tourism in our region. So I agree with the idea of what they want to do, but we are currently in discussions about whether or not their plan sufficiently provides appropriate remuneration for our northern communities, considering the amount of money our northern communities put into the pot by way of county lodging tax dollars. So those conversations are taking place. Mr. Glover is actively involved with regard to our work at the State House, and we've had very good discussions thus far between myself and individuals from the Greater Cincinnati Convention and Visitors Bureau, as well as Steve Leeper with 3CDC, who's representing the City of Cincinnati, and Jeff Aludo, who is the county administrator. So hopefully we'll have good things coming out of that by way of future work at our Sharonville Convention Center and our surrounding hotel properties, as well as making sure that the region can continue to attract and bring in strong and vital convention business, because that keeps the entire region alive by doing so. So just want to give you all that quick update.
Are there any questions for the mayor? Seeing none, we'll go on to our Safety Service Director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you. Before we get to the legislation this evening, I invited Lieutenant Griffith here tonight to talk about his recent graduation from the FBI Academy, what all that entailed. Chief Nesbitt wanted to say a few words in response to Chad, as well as this being a very important week for police dispatchers across the country. Chief had some comments about that too. So.
It is. Last year I joined you during a telecommunicator police dispatch. This week, Smith recognized them for the efforts that they keep day in and day out. Our dispatchers do know.
turn the mic on, please? Thank you. We didn't hear a word you said, Chief.
First of all, thanks for having me tonight, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be able to go to the FBI's National Academy. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I got a quick 45-minute PowerPoint presentation we're going to go over.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about trains, so we should be done shortly. There's Lieutenant Bruce back there. When did he get in? Like Chief Nesbitt said, I did on March 16th recently graduate from the FBI's National Academy. There's our wonderful that organization. It's been around since 1935. It started under J. Edgar Hoover, and it was designed for the top law enforcement executives from around the world, from all the major departments to come together to set standards across the nation about policing and build networking for if something's happening in one area of the state, the country, or the world, they can bring all law enforcement minds together to try and solve those crimes. This was in the midst of the 30s and 40s when you had a lot of gangsters out running around all over the country, and they were really relying not only on the FBI but local law enforcement agencies to be able to track down those gangsters and things like that. So it originally started in 35 with major chiefs from around the world. I believe the first one in 35 was from a delegate from China, one from the United States, and several from around the world. So going through here, as the chief said, less than 1% of all police officers actually get a chance to go to this, so I'm extremely blessed in my career that I was able to do this. So if everybody can see on their monitors, I'm not going to read this to you, but you can kind of see how it goes down. Since '72, the University of Virginia has sponsored this for the educational curriculum, so the classes you can take there go towards your undergraduate degree or your graduate degree. Having an undergraduate degree is now one of the requirements to go to this, whereas years ago it was not, but now it's more accepted that there's education in law enforcement, so it is generally one of the big things you have to go there. So most folks can take some undergraduate classes for things like forensics or investigative techniques, things like that, if they want to home up on their skills when they come back and run their divisions. I've already got one degree in law enforcement, so I decided I was going to work on my master's degree. So while I was there, I wound up taking 5 master's degree classes. So I finished half my master's degree in the FBI.
Wow.
So it costs the government, Chief, what is it, congressional?
The funding comes through congressional order, so there's no expenses for us, for the class, or the room for
I believe they said it costs about $50,000 to send somebody there for about 10 weeks. So, and I was able to go there just with time off from here, so I'm extremely appreciative of that. So like we said, nationally, fewer than 1% officers have the opportunity to attend. It's internationally known for its academic excellence. The National Academy offers 10 weeks of advanced communication, leadership, and fitness training. Participants must have proven records as professionals within their agencies. This is not something you can just sign up and go to. You have to be nominated either by an executive on your staff or an executive on another agency who you've worked with and says this person represents their job and their community in a fashion that they need to be an executive in their organization. We should fit for this training so they can take it back. So on average, most officers that go through there have a 21 years of experience. I was kind of one of the old dogs, believe it or not, in my group. Most of us that go there all serve in executive level positions. So just the names of the Sharonville officers that have been there: Chief Shappa, Lieutenant Homer, Lieutenant Hayes, Lieutenant Witzman, Lieutenant Bruce, and Chief Nesbitt. Most of the people in this room probably know most of those folks. So it's a pretty distinguished list with what the men on that board have accomplished with this police department. I've actually had a chance, luckily enough, to work with all 3 of them over the last 3 decades. This was my class, was session 285. There were 247 men and women from 47 states, including DC, and included members of agencies from 28 separate countries, 4 military organizations, and 5 federal civilian organizations. So it's really branched out. It's not just local law enforcement. There was, I got a picture of him coming up, the first Ohio National Guard member to go to this was actually in my class, and he's from up around the Dayton area. So his name was Chris Distel. Very good. There's the picture I hate. But he put that on Facebook before I could say no. So this was our section. Each section is broken down into, or each class of 250 generally is broken down into 5 sections. I was section B, so these were all the folks that were in my section who I pretty much saw daily throughout our ongoings. There was the old goats picture. You had to be 50 or older to be in that picture, and unfortunately I qualified for that. I was in the back row. So here was all the folks from Ohio that were there that day. The reason this picture was taken is because the Bureau of Criminal BCI came down. Guy in the back left, Mark Kohler, is the chief supervisor of investigations for BCI. He was one of my classmates. So BCI did a write-up for the Ohio NA members that were there while we were there. So that was pretty exciting stuff. Go the wrong way. We already kind of talked about University of Virginia. I'm now in part of their master's degree program, which is, I will be looking at a master's degree in public safety administration. So here were the classes that I took while I was there. While I was there, I wanted to focus on my education. It had been a very long time since I had been in any kind of college courses, so I was not quite ready to take 5 master's degree classes in 10 weeks. So the reason I chose those classes, the fitness and law enforcement is mandatory for everybody, which was an incredible experience in itself. But the reason I took these classes as an executive within an organization, you can tell by leading at-risk employees, that's everyone from crises, alcohol consumption, drug use, all that good stuff. Conflict resolution for executives, dealing with conflict within the organization, advanced psychology of communication, is how to become a better communicator, how to understand communication styles from people we work with, people we deal with. I actually took a writing class now, being in my 50s, go back to school and take a master's degree English class and how to write better emails. That was kind of cool. And then I did take behavior analysis for decision making. It's a theory and application class for investigations. I'm the commander over our investigative section, so that class was more for me. But it was still very good on looking at behaviors on why people do it, why they do what they do, and help communities figure out the problems, that kind of stuff. So that was the classes that I took. They have what's called the international program, the Internationals Partner Program. I was kind of worried with my course load, so I did not sign up to do this. I kind of wish I did. Is anybody who's coming over from an international organization gets paired up with somebody from an American organization to help them with classes, and there's language barriers, and kind of show them around and things like that. There's really not a whole place to show them around because you're stuck on the FBI's training facility inside a Marine Corps base. So other than, hey, look, there's the grass and Marines running around, there's not a whole lot to see. But that was a really good program. There was a lot of really, really good folks from international organizations. I did mention the fitness class, which was, while we were there, it was really cool. The young man in the picture, that's Kevin Chimento. He's the longest running fitness instructor for the FBI. We were his 100th class, so they actually came and did like a 3-page article in the Investigator magazine, which goes out nationwide to all FBI offices, federal offices, and things like that. So he was probably there when my predecessors were there, too. They might have even had him. Great guy. Taught me a lot about, I thought I knew some stuff about fitness until I actually sat and listened to him. These are the guys that go and train Olympians and UFC fighters and professional boxers and things like that, and teach those people how to be physically fit. That's the caliber of instructors that they have in this place. That was one of the pictures. There's me way in the back, big, tall, bald guy on the back left. That was one of the pictures they put in the magazine. We were his 100th class, so that was kind of exciting stuff. So I was in 2 articles while I was there. It was pretty amazing. It was all about me. One of the highlights for me, actually, while we were at Quantico, was we got to train at Butler Stadium. Any Marines up here? There's one behind me. They brought out, we got to spend a day with the United States Marine Corps Wounded Warrior trainers. These are the guys that servicemen and women come back from combat missing limbs and any problems they have, they go to Quantico, and these are the guys that put them back together and get them back on their feet and get them back in service. So we got to spend a day actually training with those guys, and they did not treat us any different than they do the Marines. So that was pretty interesting. And all those stairs behind them, we ran those a lot. There's me getting the yellow brick road brick, kind of the pinnacle of what we're there for the fitness program is. It's called the Yellow Brick Road. It's a 6.1, 6.2 mile run. Over 10 weeks, they build you up to where the first 3 miles of the course, you're actually on the Marine Corps Officers Obstacle Course. Then you come off, and then it's a 3-mile road race back to headquarters. So at the end of it, if you didn't die like I did, you're lucky enough to get your yellow brick. So whenever you see that brick on somebody's desk, a law enforcement executive, that means they've been through the National Academy and they've passed the fitness program they have there. So I really don't remember getting that brick. I thought I think I lost a banana I ate in 3rd grade along the way. This was the first time I really appreciated this night. This was the first time the NA participated in this, and I believe there were 40 of us that signed up for this. The Tim Tebow Foundation once a year does a prom night for folks with special needs, and it's done through churches all around the world. And they actually invited us to come, and I was one of the volunteers that went to that, and we basically put on a prom for folks with special needs. They get limo rides around DC. There's a big red carpet for them that rolls out, and then they get assigned what we signed up for, what was called buddies. So when they come down, walk the red carpet, and they get assigned to a buddy for the night, and we go in and dance and do arts and crafts, and there was games, and it was just an incredible time to really kind of reflect on how good we have it and what there are much better people in the world than most of the time what police officers are dealing with on a daily basis. So is anybody familiar with this? Has anybody's church has done anything like that?
Had not heard of it.
It was incredible. If you would like to get a church involved with that, take a look at that. It's really good. So, and the Washington Nationals hosted it, so I got to hang out in their clubhouse, got to actually go down on the field and stuff like that. So, we took a trip to the White House. That's just inside the front doors of the White House. That's the door that leads up to where the president was in while we were there. So they had everything roped off. They wouldn't let us go around anywhere, but there's the door as soon as you walk in the front door. So I thought that was pretty cool. One of the things they do is they have several trips planned while you're there on some weekends if you're not studying. The White House was one. I really enjoyed that. We wound up going to the Pentagon, which was really cool. Inside the Pentagon, most of the officers that go to this or who put these tours on are all NA grads themselves or they're executives. So we actually kind of get the behind the scenes tour, and they take us, like we were actually in Pentagon City going through all the federal offices and everything like that. This is actually a reflection room inside the Pentagon for employees to go and remember the September 11 attacks. And they allow police officers from the NA to leave their patch behind at the foot of their the reflection wall there. So that's me placing one of our Sharonville patches down there with the memorial seal on the floor. Another highlight for me was going to the police memorial. They're in downtown DC. That's one of the lions that watch over all the names on the wall of the fallen police officers that have made the ultimate sacrifice throughout their careers. That night, there was actually a candlelight vigil. I actually got to take part of that. And I actually got to speak Kaya Grant's name from Springdale and honor her while we were there. So it was just an incredible time for me to be there. So personally, I enjoyed it. And to wrap it all up, if you don't have any questions, the picture of me and Director Ray has not come in yet. So there's a screen capture that somebody took and emailed it to me. And I started to ask him a question about some documents in a garage, and some guy with an earpiece swept me away real quick. So, other than that, I tried to hit 10 minutes. So, in a nutshell, that's generally what the National Academy is. That was my experience there. I cannot tell you how invaluable that it was. And at this point in my career, I probably wouldn't have gotten as much out of it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, as I actually did focus on myself, look at how I could be better for myself and the organization, and this sounds like I can shine this on. But it was a very good growing experience, especially as a law enforcement executive. I would say in the future, it's definitely something we should still try and strive to have our executive law enforcement folks get nominated.
Mr. Lippert?
Sorry to put you or Chief Nesbitt on the spot, but when you mentioned fallen officers, it made me think, did our city have any involvement in the services for Springfield Township Officer Unwin?
Yes, we did. Lieutenant Griffith actually coordinated our response. We provided coverage for Springfield Township during the time when they were taken offline. They weren't in the process of their loss. Additionally, we participated in the procession.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you. Anybody else? Thank you for going and representing and,
Thanks for sending me 10 incredible 10 weeks.
good.
So,
Well, thank your family. That,
the boys miss me.
I bet. Well, yeah, you did get that communication class though, right? So maybe you learned something for your wife too? Just saying. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Lucas.
All right, moving into the legislation, there's one piece in front of you tonight for a vote, also police-related. Scott's here to talk about appropriating funds for the police grant.
Good evening. Ordinance 2023-33 appropriates funds for the 241 ARPA fund. We did some legislation last week to create that fund and to authorize those authorize those grant awards. It also provides an advance of funds from the general fund to this because it's a reimbursement grant. The grant itself very similar to the 243 fire ARPA grant. It's a little over $600,000. It'll happen over the next 2 years. So we're appropriating $330,000 for this year. It's a little bit over half. I actually just caught a Scribner's error. I'd kind of like to request kind of late delivery for signature. I will present a version. This should not be non-personnel. That amount should be considered personnel costs. Everything out of here is for personnel. So I'll present a revised copy for signature here, if we could accept that for late delivery. Sorry about that. Any questions about that? This will go back. We hired some officers middle of last year. The grant was eligible for anybody hired after June 15th, so we will capture those officers. Ironically, we'll be able to capture the police officers the very beginning of January here, and the fire individual filling those grant spots actually didn't come on till mid-January, very 1st of February. So we'll hit the ground running on this one. Thank you.
And then last, from a legislation perspective, Resolution 2023 R5 is not an emergency this evening. I'm going to be asking Law Committee for the next council meeting to have this be an emergency, just so we can get our support, if it's approved by council, to Senator Blessing as soon as possible. That's it for the legislation this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lucas? Seeing none. My report is, I just wanted to reiterate what the chief said. We have probably one of the best dispatch groups in Sharonville. I got to spend 5 or 10 minutes with them today and just celebrated them a little bit. And I just truly, if you get a moment, just send them a quick note or something, just telling them thanks for all they do, because they do a fabulous job. And they have to work with all them, so, I mean, really. So, thank you. Terry is absent with notice today. Our law director, Mr. Lippert.
Thank you. You have probably heard me mention my involvement in the Ohio Municipal Attorneys Association group before. I put out an inquiry based on something that Mr. Lucas and I talked about, and this is just to say that Tom Keating replied and wanted me to tell everybody hello.
Oh. Okay. He didn't weigh in on it?
he had the same advice that I had already gotten from somebody else, so.
Can't legislate good neighbors. All right. All right, now's the opportunity for residents that wish to be heard this evening. If you would like to come up, give us your name and your address, and it's your opportunity to speak before council. You guys don't have to run all at once. You can all come up together if there's safety in numbers. Okay, we don't bite the first time you're here. I know.
My name is Nancy Ryan. I live at 3516 Concerta Drive and came to express concern about my neighbor and the violations with the number of vehicles that they currently possess or park on our street, parking in their yard, trash, not cutting their grass. This has been going on for years and years. The city will cite them, they'll clean it up, the city will look and say fine, and then they go right back to it.
They've gotten it cleaned up somewhat, but the inoperable vehicles, they went from 3 to 1 in the driveway. There's still one there, and there's engine jacks behind it, other 3 in the driveway. They've taken apart some of the cars in the neighbor's driveway, off the street. No house needs 14 cars.
We understand, and we are working on it. I will tell you, I did get a request this week, and I did have them check on the grass. According to code here, it hadn't gotten high enough yet, but as soon as it does, they will be, they're watching it, so just so you know.
But the last time the city asked them to clean up, they just moved a lot of stuff to their backyard and just right along my fence line, and it's horrendous. I've got a spray painted bathtub I've been looking at for years on the side of their house.
Mr. Lippert.
Thank you for being here. So I don't know what has been communicated to you by way of how the community development department operates. So I want to share a little bit of that so you have some information. The code enforcement officer is a young lady by the name of Donna Hollingsworth, and she does a hell of a job. She is very much on top of problem properties to the extent they are brought to her attention. In dealing with the problems that she is aware of, she doesn't have a lot of time to go out and look for problem properties. So communication is key, and if you see something, please let that department know. And it sounds like that may have been done in the past, but I just want you to know that that's more of her mode of operations, where she will respond to issues if she's aware of them, and she does a really good job at it, but it's not something that she is policing, for lack of a better word. I know that this was brought to my attention a week or two ago, and Donna, I believe, has already issued a citation to our mayor's court for, I want to say, the 19th. Mayor's court meets once a week on Wednesdays at 4 o'clock, and I believe the citation is set for the 19th. And the magistrate is a gentleman by the name of Steve Tolbert, and he does take property issues very seriously. So, because he knows it has to do with quality of life in our city. That having been said, the property issues are April 26th, a week later. Okay. The property issues are related because it still has to do with quality of life, but kind of tangential to a zoning issue. In other words, when you're talking about that many cars, we're not thinking, oh, somebody just has that many cars, right? We're thinking, okay, he's working on these cars, right? And being able to prove that he's working on these cars is different from what you know, kind of like if you watch the movie A Few Good Men, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in court, that kind of thing. So I know that our police department, as well as our community development department, has been working on gathering some evidence in relation to showing that he's actually working on these cars that are clogging the neighborhood. And that will be addressed at the April 26th Mayor's Court appearance as well. So the city has adopted what's known as the International Property Maintenance Code, and that gives homeowners that are alleged to be in violation a certain time period to correct those violations. And as a council, I know that I've heard from various members that are very in tune with residential complaints having to do with these kind of issues. And so we are always open to the idea of fine-tuning those notices, but I know that there does need to be some due process where they are given notice of a violation. And it's a question of balance between giving that notice and a next-door neighbor not having to live with it consistently. And so I don't know if I've addressed your concerns, but just by way of talking about it, hopefully I've made you more aware of the process and that this is being addressed.
And I shared with them, we are updating our nuisance ordinances also.
And that's on the agenda. I don't know if you
Yeah.
picked one up on your way in or anything like that, but that's part of it, where we're narrowing and fine-tuning that notice.
So nuisances will be taken care of a little bit more swifter, quicker.
Okay. Enforcement has I know that they can't come on properties unless they're invited.
Right.
They are more than welcome anytime to come on my property. Probably give us.
And what was your name, please? Okay, Kevin. Okay.
So I'm not asking you, this is broadcast on cable. I wouldn't necessarily want you to put out your contact information, but if you wouldn't mind writing that down and passing it along to our safety service director, at that
Yes.
point, he can get with Ms. Hollingsworth and, give her that information so that she knows that she can reach out to you and maybe obtain some more information. Okay?
Thank you.
Did a
Fair.
number of vehicles per household limit be addressed?
That is not currently a Sharonville code. Now, Sharonville code, I don't know if that would fall within a constitutional property right violation. In other words, we have provisions in the Sharonville codified ordinance regarding the parking of vehicles and them staying there. How long, Chief? Do you know how? They have to be moved every 24 hours, and they definitely have to have the ability to be moved? Yeah. And, what's that? Yeah, they have to have current registration, current tags
Yeah.
and whatnot. So, when you're talking about limiting the number of vehicles per household, I know Mr. Coulter's household will be in violation of anything that we passed.
They don't run and my children drive them.
Yeah, I can't say, I know that off the top of my head, but I feel like that might run afoul of some type of constitutional property right.
Other areas that have a limit of cars based on the number of eligible drivers.
I'll tell you what, we'll add it as a discussion item for the next law
Yeah.
committee.
That would be good.
And I don't know that it'll happen fast, but it's something we'll look into. And by the way, you might not know this, but the last time I saw you was at Fretboard, and you played a heck of a drum kit.
Doesn't he, though? Mr. Cook?
For Mr. Lippard, is there anything that relates to, I get if you've got a large family and those eligible to drive, but what happens when the car is not registered to anyone in that household? Is there any leadway there?
Not necessarily, but gets back to the zoning issue, and I don't think I expanded on that as much as I should. Zoning, whether you're operating a mechanics operation for a business or for, just to do it for your friends, is prohibited under Sharonville zoning code. Basically, you're just not allowed to do that in a residentially zoned area. And so, whether somebody's doing, 10 of their friends' oil changes a week, or they're doing 1 or 2 cars, but they're charging people for it, it doesn't matter. They're not allowed to do it in a residentially zoned area. So to Councilman Cook's question, if you're seeing a lot of registrations that don't trace back to that residence, that sets off a red flag in any decent investigator's toolkit, right? And says, okay, these cars are here to be worked on. And that's part of what the police department looked at when they were looking at this problem property. So that's already something that they've looked at. The question of how many cars can be attributed to each household is kind of a separate kind of thing. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Knight?
I had Ms. Hollingsworth come out to our house because our neighbor's backyard was unbelievable. I mean, there is a lawnmower lost in the yard. So she came on my property and took pictures, sent it to the homeowner, and they did take care of it. So welcome her to your yard, and she will take care of it. I mean, it was unbelievable how quickly it got taken care of. But she cannot go on anybody's property, so, but she can come on yours if she's invited, so.
Perfect. Anyone else? Thank you all three for coming in. We do appreciate it. Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you. And don't forget to give Mr. Lucas Mr. Nesbitt's going to take it down right back there. Chief Nesbitt's got you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lippert. Council committees, community development, Mr. Wilson.
No report.
Community services, Mr. Lovett.
Thank you. Report on file with Ms. Buhite. No report tonight. Thank you.
Perfect. Budget and finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Budget and Finance did meet this evening, and we reviewed the outstanding balances that were advanced, and there's an attachment which I don't have. That'll be my formal report. We did see that general fund will see an influx of roughly around $2 million later this year. We reviewed the general fund transfers. We looked at various fund balances, and we did see growth in the general fund later in the year. As of right now, it stands at $9.2 million. I know Mr. Meehan talked about the department staffing and how well Luke has performed and integrated into the department. We did review the 5-year capital discussion and really just kind of get everybody back on the same page. We discussed that we would review that closer toward budget time later this year. And then finally, we just talked about recording our scheduling for the remainder of the year for budget and finance.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and then project oversight, no report.
Thank you. Honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Yes, tonight I'm honoring the rec center and their very successful Easter egg hunt they had on Saturday. They had at least 300 kids, 8,000 eggs, with 24 gold eggs that were winners with the Easter baskets they could win. But this year, they didn't put any gold eggs. They put all the, if you want a gold egg, it was in a normal egg. So people weren't searching for the gold eggs. So you didn't know if you got it or not. So, but Bethany and her committee just did a great job. So I just wanted to commend them.
Wonderful. Thank you. I heard we had a couple churches that were very involved. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on the 18th, 4 p.m., Administrative Conference Room.
Perfect. Thank you. Rule suspension motion, first and only reading for ordinance 2023-33 with immediate effectivity. Is there a motion?
You made the book.
So moved by Mr. Lovett. Forgot I got to write this stuff too. Second by Mrs. Knight. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and that does carry. Yes. I can. Is there a motion for late delivery of ordinance 2023-33, the amended version? So moved by Mr. Lovett. Second by Mr. Cook. Any discussion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and that carries, so I will log that for Terry also. Thank you. Unfinished business. Ordinance 2023-30, this is the second reading, amending section 521.17 of Sharonville's codified ordinance regarding chronic nuisance. Move on to new business, ordinance 2023-33, amending 2023 appropriations for various funds and authorizing an advance of funds. First and only reading. Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2023-33? So moved by Mr. Coulter, second by Mr. Wilson. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, Mr. Wilson, your vote, please. I'm Terry tonight, too.
Yes.
My little bipolar self is coming out.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Coulter,
Yes.
Mr. Lovett,
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
No, I'm bipolar. Mrs. Knight
Yes.
and Mr. Schmidt.
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion carries. Resolution 2023-R05, supporting Senate Bill 76, is introduced into the 135th General Assembly, and that's our first reading for that. Is there any residents that wish to be heard? You're good? Are you sure? And you're missing next meeting, correct? Yes. Okay. I absent would notice, just so I'm not the only one that heard it. Any other matters to be heard this evening?
Just one thing real quick, because I
Go ahead,
forgot to say it during my report, our monthly mayor's court report totals, our total revenue was, for the month of March, was $651.50. A complete breakdown is available through the report submitted to the clerk for the minutes.
Okay, which one did, oh, is this the new copy? All right, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Wilson. Second, Mrs. Knight. All those in favor, yes? Yes. Those opposed, no, and we do stand adjourned. Thank you.